All right, going live.
Awesome. I think we're live.
Woohoo, I think we are.
Woohoo!
Yay. Okay, and I just want to make sure that we're in the right view too. I think this is okay. I think this is a good view, or it's speaker view. I don't know. We're figuring it out, but
All right.
Welcome everyone. I have a very special guest. I'm very excited. I don't do collaborations often, but this was really divine and synchronistic. I'll just kind of mention how you and I got connected, which is someone sent me your content. I believe that same person sent you my content, kind of within the same time frame. But what's really cool is my personal email isn't public, and my team kind of chooses what emails to send to me. So I don't really get any of those emails. And of course, my lovely wife was intuitive enough to actually give me that email. So that's it. And I was like, all right, let's check this woman out, and love your vibe, love what you're doing for humanity. And that's kind of how we divinely got connected. So I think, Anne, just go ahead and get started with who are you, what do you do, and why are you here now?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I'm so thrilled that we met, because I do think it's such an interesting thing to have. We're both talking a lot about similar things, but you're taking it from the perspective of the Galactic Federation of Light, and I'm looking at it from the perspective of the angels. And there's so much synergy between those. They're different but the same, you know what I mean? It's a super interesting conversation. So I'm a deep trance channel. I channel from the angelic realm, and my coming to this, my background, I think I was telling you, I used to be corporate. I was a very successful executive coach for years, and a negotiator, and worked in anyways, I did all that kind of stuff. And then all the gifts started coming in. And it was like, okay, that's definitely, there's no space for that there. And so there was a time in my life when I had to pull the plug. I had to really take the leap. And there's no going back. Once you come out and you're like, I have angels that speak through me, like no one is letting me back in. Like they cannot go back to that. So it's a one-way ticket. So, but yeah, I have embraced it, and I've not looked back for a second, and love what I do now. So my role on the planet, I'm part of the pre-team, the team sort of leading up to the awakening, and then I'll have a role after the awakening as well. And I'm helping to build a bridge for us moving into our awakening. So I'm building the pathway into one of the pathways into our awakening, is what I'm doing really at a sort of a metaphysical level. And I'm doing that in a bunch of different ways. So yeah, so I share my channeling regularly. So I have a YouTube channel as well, which is Ann Tucker, the Ann Tucker channel. And I share my channeling every week.
Amazing. So let's kind of just get started with, give us a little lowdown on the angels, just in general, their vibration. Anything in particular you want to mention about kind of who they are, or how they come through, or like what that process looks like?
Yeah. Thanks for asking, because it is one of my favorite subjects, actually, because they have been working to try to help teach us about what we are as spiritual beings by comparing us to them as spirit. So to say, how is us, in terms of not just our physical selves, but us as our spiritual selves, how do we differ from angels? Because how do we learn is through comparison. We learn by what we are not. So angels they're not always what we think of them as. Like a lot of us think of them as messengers, right? You think of like that, that's like the Bible talks about angels as being messengers. But angels are not physical beings in the sense that they're more of an awareness. They are sort of God's awareness. If you use that word, that's my word, please substitute with whatever word feels best to you. But it is pervasive everywhere. And so angelic energy is like a fluid. It's everywhere at all times. And when an angel sort of personifies, if you have an interaction with an angel, it's like that energy, that awareness congeals into a form and then disperses again. So when, for example, when they are going to send a message, It's, it's not how we would normally think. It's like they direct energy into where we are, rather than us thinking about them actually taking that message and like flying away on their wings and like giving it to someone. What they do is they direct awareness into you and your light. They bring light in, and that calls that divine awareness into what it is that you're trying to illuminate. So they illuminate it for you. That it's all about energy, right? So it's not so much the direction of your message, it's the direction of awareness into your message. So the way they describe themselves, I'll share with you a little bit of what they say. They describe themselves, they say, and this is one of the channelings that they've given me tons and tons about what is an angel. So I just picked some of the prime bits here. They say, we are substrate to yourselves, the substance you lean upon. We are integral to your own creation. We have a role given by him, and they do respond to God as him, but please use her, like I said, whatever word you like. And it's just the divine love energy. We have a role given by him who speaks in love. We have an undertaking, which is to be your constant companion. We have some filter by which we can comprehend all you speak, all you feel and know. We can understand that which you desire to create and those obstacles you have instigated. This we know. They talk about like, they're different from us. They say that they have feelings like we do, but not the same way. So they say that we have thoughts, feelings as you are understood to have, but ours are not ranging in the same vibrations as your own. We feel love primarily. We feel sympathy and caring concern, but not fear. Concern comes from dismay, the feeling of slight disappointment at your reluctance to embrace ourselves, not disappointment in yourselves, but at missed opportunity, the reluctance to let the good passage go by too easily. We feel when this occurs, when a potential gateway is closed, we feel a potent mix of love causing our vibration to fluctuate and feel some disappointment that this has not transpired. It is not as you feel in the sense of your trajectory. Disappointment leads your mind to fill with stories that lead your energy into a vacuum of care, downward spiraling sorrow. But we are not that way. We do not have attachment to any one method for your enrichment. We are not demanding that any one passage occurs, but we feel the lack when opportunity passes you by. So, and here they describe the part about the messengers. They say, we carry your messages in our hearts back to him, not physically, but by generating resources, carrying energy to call attention to that which you wish to be said. For attention is God. We seek to draw energy to yourselves. Energy flows with awareness. We call in this light and shine it upon that which you wish to say. This allows your imprint to sail among the stars, to be heard by those it seeks. It travels by and through awareness. Seeking attention is only how we imprint your voice upon the heavens. So, So yeah, they're not typically how we think of them or how we draw them, but they're way more powerful than that.
Okay, in essence, I am hearing they are kind of messengers, right? They carry flow, like they carry different frequencies and focus. So I have a couple, like so many questions actually. I want to kind of just backtrack and make mention, because we kind of didn't cover this. And I know that you're what is it called? Trans channeler?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So they come into your body, right?
Yeah.
Through you, and then you write, like you're
they
automatic
speak through my voice. Yeah, they speak through my voice, and then I do it. I dictate it and I write it both. And the writing, as you can imagine, I'm doing it with my eyes closed, so the writing is a mess. But I do that because sometimes the frequency kind of blows out the technology. So if you know what I mean. So sometimes it doesn't pay. So I have to have like two systems going so that I have a fail safe.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah. I know. Okay, so yes, I wanted to mention, like you and I were just talking about this right before we hopped on, and we're like, oh my goodness, we have to mention this.
Yeah.
That, for me, like my channeling is all visual. So they'll give me a visual representation, like interdimensional beings will give me a visual, and then I'll try and relay the messages within that visual, which is really difficult because obviously the English language is already limited. But then, a picture says 1,000 words and you're trying to say 1,000 words to one image. So it's kind of a difficult translation.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, I will sit down and actually say, okay, here's the question. What's the answer? And they'll give me the answer. And what would typically take me 45 minutes to explain one concept or one image, they can sum up and explain in 3 sentences.
Yes,
I have to repeat those sentences because every word they use, every structure they put together speaks volumes. Like those
Yeah.
sentences, even, just hearing your relay of the messages verbatim from the angels, they do speak a very different way. And it feels like there's so much packed into that.
It blows my mind. You're totally right. And it is like, I feel like and that's why it's like, it's great to hear it. But even when I go back to it a second time, I feel like I could just take each sentence and just spend time with each, because there's layers, right? And each one is so deliberate. It blows my mind, the intelligence that's there, because it is the choices that they make. And it's very poetic sounding to us, but it's layered with meaning. Yeah. And I could never say it is like, I'll try, oh, this is what the message was about. And I can never quite encapsulate it the way that they can.
Totally. Yeah. And I think it, for us as just kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Conduits.
Yeah.
For us as conduits, right? It's a bit of like, hey, this is my human interpretation, and being clear about this is just kind of how I'm putting it together. And I think at some levels that vibrates with mainstream and vibrates with the rest of the world. And then we go out with the sentences, like the full, like verbatim word for word. And it's a download. A lot of people will not take on the full extent of that, but it will sink into your soul. You know what I mean? So I thought it was interesting how you and I are very similar in that way of when they come right through verbatim, their sentences are so articulate, are so clear, but just layered on layered on layered, just packed with like a book of information per sentence. It's wild.
Yeah. And it's so specifically chosen. As a matter of fact, when I'm channeling, there'll be times when a word is coming and I'm seeing visually as they're talking, and I can't retain what they're saying because when I channel, I'm very much in my right brain. So I can see things, but I don't remember the words very well. And afterwards I come back and read them. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. But sometimes the words will be coming through, and there'll be a word that for whatever reason, it gets stuck because they will use any word I've ever heard any time in my life. So they will sometimes throw in like foreign language words. They will throw in, like random stuff. And I have to look it up. Like a lot of times I have to go like look up the dictionary. What the heck does this mean? And because it's ancient words, it's random. But anyway, so sometimes one of those words kind of gets stuck in the pipe. And I'm looking at it and I'm looking at the word. I'm like, what is that word? And they won't keep going until I let it through. So it just sits there with like this little stuck in the pipe.
That's so funny. Yeah, same thing. Like I use words all the time that I'm like, is that even a word? Now, granted, sometimes I do make up words. Okay, sometimes I'm combining words.
Yes, for sure.
But what's funny is, regardless if I know what that word is or not, and obviously the subconscious mind knows because you read it somewhere along the way or it's in your vernacular, right?
Yeah.
But every time I look up a word that I don't know that comes through, it's always used in the right context.
Yes, right? Isn't that the coolest?
Always perfectly placed. So I think that's pretty cool. Okay, so I want to go back to a couple of the things that the angels were saying about who they were.
Yeah.
Okay, I have two questions. One is, a lot of people want to know how to connect with the angels. And I know that I feel like I consider angels interdimensional beings, right? Because they really, truly are beings from other dimensions. Like that is the definition. And so a lot of people think that, I think from the biblical reference, that angels are, something different than, say, your typical kind of gray alien. And I think that they're all kind of clumped into, they're living in different dimensions. I mean, we could be considered interdimensional beings as well, or multidimensional beings, because we're able to also shift through and tap into different dimensions as well.
Yes.
And so, one thing that came up was, in order for us to connect to the angels, is it just a matter of focus? Because that's kind of what they brought through, which is, we help you kind of manifest and attain and live your best life and connect with source or God through focus and your intention of bringing it back in. So if the people at home are like, I want to connect to the angels because I feel like one, is it really truly just a matter of focus? Like, what would your advice be for those of us who want to connect to the angelic realms?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that, because you're right that, so first of all, each of us does have, like, the guardian angel thing is real. Like, each of us has one angel that's assigned to us at birth. That is, and what's interesting about that is that is a deeper integration than we're aware of, that it's almost like our paths are kind of grow together as we go forward. So the role of the angel in terms of us is like they're assigned to us as sort of like God's presence, again, my word, through our lives. They I did grab another thing here that was specifically about that, about let me grab it here. Let's see. Is this the one about your observations meet your frequency? Let's see here. No, I did this one. This was for something later. But in any case, they when we want to communicate with them, you're going to feel them right now, like where you are right now. You'll feel them as it's an internal feeling. And so you can sense an angel now. It's sort of like a sudden feeling of joy. They feel like you might feel almost like bubbly, like joy, excitement is how they feel inside your heart. And they bring that in, and when they come through, it's like a wind passes through. It's like because we can't hold the frequency until you get really used to it. You can raise your frequency into their vibration. It's actually interesting. When they work with people, they bring people up specifically to the frequency of peace. And that's the space where they can access us more fully, and they can actually do healing and things like that when we are in that frequency. So whenever people are working with them, that's where they go. But in terms of where we are here, you'll feel them. It'll be, it might even be cool, like a cool touch or a cold sensation. And it's ironically that you think it would be warm and stuff like that, but it's not. It's a cold breeze. Could be the, bubbles or feeling of joy, a little whisper, almost like I said, a breeze of joy that goes through you. So you could be in any state and experience that right now. But if you're actually looking to have like a deeper connection with them, then yeah, you have to raise your vibration up before you try. So you have to try to get into a space of, like, a great way to do it is gratitude. If you can get into the space of gratitude and just really spend a few minutes just really meditating on something that makes you feel amazing. And gratitude will do it. And then from there, you just raise your awareness up as high as you possibly can go. When you get to that high space, you just go a little bit higher. And you can use visualizing techniques to help you do that. You can picture like a platform and you're trying to get up on top of that platform. Just try to go as high as you can and then connect from that space.
That's interesting, because that's exactly what the Galactic Federation says all the time. Because people are like, I want to connect to my cosmic family. I want to connect to the GFL. I want to connect to the angels. And the information every single time, as rudimentary as it may sound, is raised vibration. And the kind of logic behind that is, if you think about us as human beings here, obviously third dimension frequency, we're shifting into higher frequencies, but 3D, you're trying to reach an angel in the seventh dimension frequency.
That's exactly right.
It's a huge gap.
It's a huge gap.
Yeah, they can come down to you in small bits and portions, right?
Mm-hmm,
but even if they were to come to us, to contact us, which they do all the time, we're not even open enough or aware enough to interpret what they're trying to give us. So it's kind of futile. Look, we raise our vibration a certain extent, fifth dimension, they'll meet us halfway. Right?
That's exactly right.
Ground. So I love that. Okay, I have one more question about the angels that I'm kind of curious about, just based on the channeling that you mentioned at the beginning. Which is, I kind of interpret it as, and I never really thought about this before. I mean, of course, I know that the angels are, a lot of them are etheric, like purely etheric. There are some that are more physical, like there's kind of different levels or dimensions of angels from my understanding. Do you believe, okay, through your channeling, that because they're kind of an essence or an etheric energy, do they present themselves to us in a way that we interpret visually? Or do you believe that there is just one visual interpretation per angelic soul?
I believe that they can, that they have because they are collective consciousness, they're an awareness, they have all of these different tropes that they can take on. They can say, okay, we're going to form, here's angelic essence is now going to congeal and form into this kind of angel. And so they can take on different types and different forms. And that is an identity that they can take on. So it is just like if you think about if you as a person were to evolve and then rise up and become part of a collective consciousness, that collective consciousness would know Elizabeth April, and they would have an intact an intact awareness of you as a being, even though you were part of a collective. And that's how I perceive them as angels, is that they have all these different. So for example, one of the person I was channeling for, she needed, like, she couldn't understand, she was having a hard time connecting with the angels. Their language, in fact, it was hard for her to feel it. And so they brought through an angel who had had a lifetime on Earth, which is rare. Very few angels have had Earth lifetimes. And they brought through one who had been alive then, and let him speak through. And it helped enormously because the language was much more relatable. And the crazy thing about it is that he didn't actually know how to channel. So channeling is something that we have to learn it, and they have to learn it, because he couldn't modulate his energy. So he was talking a mile a minute and not letting me breathe. And like, it was, you know what I mean? It was like clear. And then finally they pulled him back, and then they worked with him, and got it so that it would work better. But it was funny because they got him because he had the lifetime, but he hadn't been a channel before.
You know what's really funny about that? That reminds me of, what day is it? It was just like 2 days ago when I did my monthly Galactic Federation channel.
Yeah.
And there was a hybrid girl. She was like a little girl, super, super red hair, beautiful green eyes, looks very humanoid, but definitely, like, when you look at her, you're like, you're definitely like, you look human, but you're totally interdimensional.
Yeah.
Like, just stunning. And she had a lot to say. Like, she was an expert in, I don't remember, because I don't remember what I channel, whatever she was an expert in, right? And she had a lot of information, but she didn't know how to telepathically connect to me because she was like young. And so she felt blocked in, like, oh, but I don't speak your language, or I've never spoken to a human before. And I'm like, this is bizarre, because I connect to so many interdimensionals, and it's like boom, 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 so quick, effortless, lots of images. And each one has a different kind of way of communicating too, like some more images, some more words, some more quantum physics. And so it's very rare that I experience an interdimensional who doesn't really know how to telepathically communicate to a human. But you get reminded of these things of, like, oh yeah, I guess there is a practice on their end as well as on our end. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Which is crazy to think, but it makes sense. You know what I mean? Because I know that it's hard for them to come down here. As a matter of fact, the message I just got just recently, they were saying that as we are, in order to be down here with us, it's like they've had to lower their vibration to be here. And as we move up, now they get to move up too. And they said that when they come down, they frequently will come down, and they have to go up in periods to restore their vibration.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I heard the same thing from the Palladians as well. They can really come down, because I told them once, I was like, years ago, so frustrated. I'm like, just come in the physical, please. Like, let's come down. Let's take a selfie together. Let me show the world that you exist. You know what I mean? Like, that'd be so much easier. And they said, Elizabeth, it's just not feasible for us to be in your frequency, like in the planetary frequency. It's impossible for us to be there in the physical. It's just, it's too dense. And that's where the hybrid beings come in, and them getting tested within this density. It's wild. So let's move into important messages. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
This is huge. And I thought, you and I connected just in a personal Zoom meeting like a couple weeks ago. And we went into a bunch of these things that the Galactic Federation saying the same thing that the angels are saying. Of course, there are angels a part of the GFL as well. But it's just really fascinating. And we were laughing last time saying we could have recorded this and
I know,
because it's just so juicy, so good. So please relay some of the most important messages, kind of in a summary, that you've been receiving and picking up for humanity from the angels.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for asking. It is so, so even just the message I shared today, the one that I got from my Friday Live today, is about, that there's the general idea is that there's been the earth herself is going through her evolution, and that is a natural process for her, and she's preparing to move up to another vibration. And part of that process, she has to expel a bunch of energy in order to allow, just in the same way that so her healing process, just like our healing process, in the same way that we have to allow emotions to come up and move through us, she has to do the same thing. And so us being here, if we want to stay, we also, as you know, we also have to raise our vibration. So, but that process of her doing that, there's going to be a lot of havoc on the earth. So here's the one I just got. And this was super interesting. The message I got today was about what they're calling the Earth Rift, which is this, and my understanding from what they said is that it will be in or around the Indian Ocean and affecting Indonesia, somewhere in there. That is sort of the beginning spot of this, but that it has an effect that spreads around the globe. And I'll share a message they said about that here. But there's things that go along with this in terms of economic shifts. There's things in terms of, that at the end of the day, where we end up after all of this crazy upheaval is we get to a place where certain places on the planet are really not as inhabitable anymore. So we have a lot of population migration, and we end up kind of coming together in certain areas, and we end up with one world government at the end. So new leaders emerge and a one world government is what they said. But I'd love to share what they said about, if you want to hear it, about the Earth Rift and then they talk about the solar flare and technology. If you want to hear those.
Yeah, I do. Okay. I want to mention one thing before you get into it. So I've heard something very similar. I mean, from my initial Galactic Federation meeting back in 2011, they gave me like everything, just like, I mean, the pole shift, the 144,000. I mean, like they just, I didn't know. I mean, the shapeshifters, like everything.
Yeah.
And it really blew my mind. And so, they also talked about this one world government. And for me, like studying global politics in university, and then also looking into the fourth dimension sort of agendas and conspiracy theories, there is this fear that the one world government, and right now, it's no surprise we have a one world government, right? Like let's not kid ourselves that there's a power behind all of those government structures and behind all of those borders that is in control of everything, right? So it's just fascinating how you've got kind of this conspiracy or this paradigm potentially we can think about it as throwing us off or bringing fear towards that possibility or outcome, when in fact that could potentially be a really incredible solution as long as it's done for the unity of all mankind. You know what I mean? So I think that it's important. I just wanted to mention that because I know that there are a lot of people who, upon getting into that higher frequency, we have to go through the polarity. We have to understand the conspiracy aspects. We have to understand the agendas that are at play, but then we have to move above that, and understand, wow, there's actually this other side too that's pretty incredible. So I just kind of wanted to mention that too about the one world government. And there are two ways that you can look at it as everything in this reality. So let's hear the downloads about what they were mentioning.
Yeah, fantastic. So okay, so they say that there will be, we say you are wondering about the physical effects on the planet. We are aware there will be some disturbance of magnitude housing in the Earth's crust, the domain of physicality for the planet being. So basically the crust is her physical expression. She is well, but disturbed by our gradual enlivenment. She feels our embrace as we hearken her onward, upward into her full bearing. So the angels are helping the Earth through her own awakening process. She will open herself a rift, separation of plates that will rise up from the ocean and heave into the atmosphere such debris as can free her from toxins within. A necessary outpouring of grief and rage inflicted upon herself by yourselves, your inhabitation of violence forthcoming. It does reveal itself in this expression of her upheaval. It will be released, a torrent from her fabric, a torrent of debris pours forth and leaves disturbance everywhere. So this is that Earth Rift that I talked about that is somewhere in that region, which if you're talking about the pole shift, I actually saw recently, it was kind of interesting. Somebody showed a model where if the pole shift, the North and South Pole could come together in the Indian Ocean. I don't know if that's coincidence, but they're specifically talking about this event, and they've named it before as being in that area, which is kind of interesting. But they go on to say, it is felt by all. Some will feel it proximately. So those who are nearby would obviously feel it. But then they say others reveal a twinge of awareness and then the shaking of the planet underneath. They become aware indeed. She reveals her awakening sound, a deafening roar, climbing the hills, refracting and reverberating everywhere or elsewhere, heard by all on the planet. It will rise. The waters begin to climb. They come up with pressure from underneath, the pressure comeuppance, the lifting of the tide onward, rushing outward in all directions. It flows and envelops all in its path. It moves mountains aside. It clears pathways, dissolved. It moves without feeling or compassion. All will be revealed, but you are aware. We are there. We are holding all, preparing everyone. All will be held by ourselves. So, and that's something they bring up over and over again, is that through this whole awakening process, that they are present, and that anybody that chooses, that wants to stay in the third dimension reality, and there are some people who really feel like they aren't done with it yet, that they have more to learn, and it's a great place to learn. The karmic path is fabulous in terms of learning on the soul's journey. And so there are some people who want to continue with that, and those people will be very carefully ushered into a new place where they can continue that journey. But those people who want to stay will then have to raise their vibration into this new frequency. And so the angels are really, I mean, there's a gazillions of them right here, and they are managing that process and helping to make sure that every single soul is looked after and taken care of. So they're really keep, even though, and some of this stuff sounds pretty scary, they keep saying, continue to invest in your life. And I think that's huge, is that we don't want to get so focused on what's coming. They're saying, invest in your life fully right now, because the energy that you're creating is like a trajectory that's going forward into the future. And you want to continue investing in that, because it will carry forward. So I think super interesting stuff. They go on, if you want to hear the part about the solar flare, are you interested in that as well?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So here's what they say about that. They say, you can feel her enlivening with solar retort. There are many circumstances of solar elevation. So many, right now we're having a lot of frequencies hitting the planet, but one will come, one elevation supreme, to knock out all elevation, communication. It will subside, freeing yourselves to be relieved of that duty of learning complexity, that technological progress, which has hampered your spiritual progress. That upliftment temporary into godlike states of communion with one another without the required passage of elevation of spirit. So they're talking about technology today gives us a lot of the capabilities that you can develop through your spiritual growth. It allows you to have really telepathic communication, like think about social media and email and all the ways that we can be in constant communication with one another. They're saying that it gives us this elevation into these sort of godlike states, but without the required passage of elevation of spirit. They say, indeed, it does not hinder the growth so much as prevent it. It does harbor within the frequency of elevation, subtracting God. It has no soul within, no frequency of light, no illumination for your benefit. It has, however, the enchantment of elevation, the ready connection and fusion of compatibility with another, the light and easy touch of technology to do all sorts of things as you are. But now, with this coming period of blackout they're talking about, and they've called that in a previous channeling, they called it a period of blackout. But they say, but now receive the true lightness, the true elevation of spirit that unites all within the context of humanity in peace and love, uniting in all circumstances, housing within it the true resonance of your capacity to care for one another. This is another frequency of difference. Yes, of belonging, not having, of being settled in the self, of acknowledging your own wisdom within, not seeking external gratification from inundation with digital frequencies promising connection of another sort, unsatisfying, bereft of kind heart, lacking true wisdom, holding the frequency of depravity, of lack, heresy, and foreboding. These are all encumbered in technology as you house it today. We release you from it. We cure your heart and heave you together into another future now, that housing of fabric woven from love and caring for one another, that tenderness of heart found lacking today. You will attain it, but by upheaval. This is the journey forward. So, wow.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay. I want to mention something that was just so loud when you were, speaking that truth. Recently, just at a personal level, I've been feeling this, I guess, pressure, a mounting pressure, to get rid of anything that isn't serving me. And a lot of the messages coming through is the same thing: jobs, relationship, what obviously those are the chains that keep us tethered to the lower frequencies.
Yes.
So for me, I mean, my life is so great. I'm in, you and I both said that,
right?
That life is really, You
It's
know,
really awesome right now.
yeah, it is. And so, but there are still facets of my life that don't feel aligned to a higher vibration. So, like one of the things, and I have a podcast episode that I recently recorded, which is stop scrolling.
Oh,
And, you
yeah.
know, I think so many of us, and I'm not typically that person, but it's just, you just pass time by
Yeah.
just observing other people and other creators rather than being the creator in your own life. And
Yes.
something that should have been 15 minutes to find that email happens to be 2.5 hours. And you're like, where the hell did I just go? And so that's been really nagging at me as far as I got to let go of these attachments maybe to like technology, right? In
Yeah.
that way. But I
Yeah.
think that we're all being forced at this time to really observe our life and let go of the elements that are tethering us to a lower
Yeah.
frequency, to raise our frequency higher. And that those things that aren't aligned are going to become louder and louder and louder as we progress and move forward. And
Yeah.
so I know that a lot of my foundations are super aligned, but there's certain elements that are getting really loud that I'm like, okay, cool. I'm stopping that habit today because it's just not serving me. And I feel like a lot of people are getting confronted because, you know, if and when this event takes place, this solar flash, this cosmic, you know,
Yeah.
radiation, whatever it is, because I've heard both the solar flare and the kind of a cosmic wave hitting us,
Yeah.
different elements. But the GFL has talked about both of them. And same thing, it's to wipe something out, to elevate us to a new frequency. And for those people who have not done the work, who have not been listening,
Yeah.
who continue to feed into these low vibrational habits, are going to have a very, 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 very rough time ascending and changing when those circumstances do happen and shifting into a higher frequency. I mean, look at 2020, right? We were all
Yeah.
forced to
Yeah.
shift and to change and to listen and to stop these attachments to identities. And it was a really hard on a lot of people. Like, why can't we
Yeah.
just go back to normal? And like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. For
Those
real.
kind of
Yeah.
things where it's like, take this opportunity to change and shift into a better place. And that's what a lot
Absolutely.
of us have done, right?
Yeah.
So, but now it's getting nitpicky. Now we're getting to kind of the root of a lot of these aspects.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I took from that, which is let go of your attachments now and be
Yes.
prepared. And
Yeah.
actually, speaking of preparedness, you and I chatted about this when we just had our kind of personal connection a couple weeks ago. What
Yeah.
are the angels saying about physical, tactical preparedness?
What to do. Yeah, for sure. They're big on water. They're really big on water. So, and it's specifically around making sure you can clean your water, which makes sense because we're talking about a lot of flooding. Like already, think about the flooding that we're having because of climate change. But they're talking about this big wave thing. But then there's more flooding on top of it. Because my understanding is that if this thing happens in the Indian Ocean, there's some percentage of the ocean that ends up in the atmosphere. The warmer the planet gets, the more water it can hold in the atmosphere, which is what's causing all the flooding that we're having right now in like, what is it, 12 different nations that have had massive, like whole city, towns just washed away. And so in any case, when you have flooding like that, it can mess up the water that you have to drink. It can mess up your sources or even your clean sources of water. So having a way, so simple, like the more expensive but really super awesome version is to get a Berkey, Berkey, which is a water filter. You can, anyways, the reason I like those is because they also get rid of viruses, so you don't have to boil the water. And if you want to do that on the cheap version is the Life Straw, which you can buy like a 4-pack at Costco for $40. It is not expensive, but same thing is it eliminates viruses as well. So that the other thing would not be a bad idea is having a couple water quality tests on hand so you know if your water is safe to drink or not. So that's a big one. And having food that they specifically talked about produce, but that's because I'm a vegan. They're really big on produce when they talk like there's going to be hard to get produce, but food in general might be hard to get. So, having, and not to go crazy about it. Like they're really big on like, do not be in fear. This isn't something to be afraid of. It is something that they keep saying whenever fear comes up, or when people talk about fear, they say, bring your mind right now, right this minute, back to your room where you're sitting, to the four walls that you're inside, and look inside your four walls and perceive, is there anything in your room to be afraid of? And absolutely not. Like, you're in a space of everything is fine. And there, right now, as you're sitting there, there is crazy stuff going on in the world. It's happening out there. But if you pull your mind back here, you're completely fine. And that's a lot what this is going to be like. So come back into your own self, into your own space, and be aware, but have your giant bag of rice and your giant bag of beans and whatever way, whatever foods that you're going to miss. That would be one thing I would say, is store stuff that you're actually going to use. Like, have a backstock of things that you actually eat. So that it's like, you're not like, oh, bummer, another thing of, rice and beans, if you hate rice and beans,
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the Galactic Federation has been saying the exact same thing. Diversify your assets, right?
Yes.
Have cash, have
Yes.
precious metals.
Yeah, exactly.
That's to the other extent, but food and water, number one, right?
Yeah.
Is the biggest thing. A lot of people are intuitively moving. So many people have moved in 2021. So many. And they weren't planning on it. The doors of opportunity just opened. Even you're thinking about moving as well.
Yeah.
We're getting these intuitive pulls. And it's funny, I just want to mention your tactic on fear, right? So I've been trained, you could say, on a very similar tactic, but kind of to the other end of it. So this is really fascinating. So I've been taught by interdimensionals to actually take a giant step back from this body, take a giant step back from this room, take a giant step back from this planet, and understand this is one lifetime, one incarnation, one moment, one experience, one polarity, and not to put down this experience, because this is a very, very important planet, very important civilization, very important time to be alive and to be present and to be here. But we can get so caught up in the weeds of the collapse of the old world to think that things are getting worse, when in fact they're getting a lot better, that we get too consumed by the present moment. So they actually say, take a huge step back from this moment. And I love how the angels are like, actually step into this moment and realize there is nothing to be fearful of right now in this room. But likewise, there's nothing to be fearful of when you take a greater look at, this is one lifetime out of an infinite number of lifetimes experienced in this vast universe. And I think that it's the in between the expanse of the universe and this room where we get caught up in of all the different timelines and what's happening on the planet and how things are going to take place, instead of just really surrendering and trusting.
Yes. So, that's such an important message, is just the surrender and trust, is just to be present in the moment, to surrender and trust, and sort of allow it to flow through you, and recognize, keeping your vibration high. And yes, there will be some difficult times. Like the angels have actually channeled a lot of messages on helping people handle depression. And I think that that's going to be one of the hard things they've said, is that people that might suffer, that there might be people out there that that are having a really hard time, and that they've given us a lot of messages about, okay, like, how do you deal with that? Like, how do you move through when it's maybe you're okay, but what about people that you care about, or people that and that's not easy to think about. But keep in mind that what's on the other side of this is amazing. Like, the angels have even said on the other side of this, and the other side of this may be not in our generation. Like, we are, the length of time that it's going to take for us to fully embody this new frequency. I'm sure we will see changes right away. But angel time is not accurate. Let me just say that right up front. When they say soon, it means like, it could mean anything, like soon to them anyways. But they have said that we will experience angels on the planet. The angel will be here and they're here already in terms of our guardian angels and all that kind of stuff. But they have said angels will be on the planet, and they will be helping us and showing us like how to rebuild and how to sort of create this new society. And so we will not be left on our own to figure it out. And what is on the other side is that, imagine a scenario. One of the things they've described is, imagine if everyone had the degree of emotional fluency that you get with telepathy, if that everyone had that, so if everyone was an empath, and what that would do to people who are like, think about, like people in power negotiating, like leaders, like there would be no more war if they could really telepathically and empathically feel each other's feelings and understand each other's positions. That totally changes the game in terms of trying to figure out a truce that works for everyone. So they say that this ability to have telepathy and to have empathy, like universal empathy, is brings about world peace, which is like amazing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to mention too, something else that kind of popped into my head while you were speaking is you can ask the angels, you can ask the angelic realm for surrender and trust, because they're experts in surrender and trust.
Yeah.
There's a lot of interdimensionals that are not experts in surrender and trust.
Is that right?
For sure, for sure. But the angels are for sure experts in it. And once again, like you mentioned, like whenever I connect to the angelic realm, it's like this unconditional love that washes over me. Like this absolute, okay, cool. The world could blow up right now and I'm good. Like I'm so at peace. And that's something that they are really happy to share, but also something that you have to ask for, because it's that law of non-intervention as well. They're always omnipresent, but you also need to be willing to meet them halfway and bring them in, call them in. And that's the connection. And I think that the more and more of us connect to them, the more we activate the planet and the higher the vibration we go collectively. And I want to actually just share with you, so the Lionsgate portal, technology issues like exhaustion, just a myriad of different things going on with that activation. But I got really sleepy. That's actually how I know interdimensionals want to connect with me, is when I get really tired. They just like zonk me out. So they pull me out of this reality. They're like, all right, EA, listen up. Like, stop what you're doing. Stop vacuuming, close your eyes and like listen, right? And so like, okay, which is a very pleasant way of kind of getting pulled into that realm, is just kind of getting sleepy. So I laid down instantly. I closed my eyes, thought I was going to go for a nap. I connected to the grid of the planet, and there was all these beautiful angels who were all connected to the planetary grid. And this was on 8/8 Lionsgate. And golden, it was just so much, this outpouring of golden frequency. The angels were lit up with golden. The grid around planet Earth was lit up with golden frequency. It was this beautiful, sacred, geometric kind of structure around planet Earth. And the angels, they weren't touching each other, right, in this grid. They were on the ley lines of the grid. Like all of the intersection points, they were there, and they were pulsating this golden frequency into the planet to activate it for the 8/8 portal. And then there was hundreds of thousands of light workers like myself in our astral bodies, because I could tell the difference between us. We're white light energy, and then the angels at that time were golden frequency. And we were all joining the grid and activating it. And they told me that this activation was going to continue until the 12th, 13th. So today would be the last day. So a lot of that, a lot of the symptoms that people have been feeling should kind of subside after today. But that's what the angels are good. Like they feel like the guardians of this consciousness grid around planet Earth, also the guardians for Mother Gaia, and then the guardians for the inhabitants of Mother Gaia, which is us. So once again, connecting to the grid is connecting with them, calling them in, asking for that trust, asking for that surrender, now more so than ever before. Because remember, what you focus on is what you're feeding the collective consciousness. If you're focusing on fear, if you're focusing on negativity, if you're focusing on low vibration, that is what you're giving the planet, right? So are you really doing the work that, are you really giving the frequency that the planet needs based on what you're focusing on per day? Or are you, elevating and helping the planet, right? So with that.
So true. And
so
something I wanted to add to that about when if people are wanting to connect with them, and that's such a cool vision, by the way, of that you saw that. I mean, that's like, I love hearing that. That's so inspiring. But that people need to vocalize if they want to call in the angels, that the angels, if it's not formed into a thought form, they won't hear it. So you have to physically, like, say, you can whisper it so quietly, but it has to take on a thought form in order for them to be able to help you. So just having the like inner, like, oh, why aren't they helping me? I've kind of given them sort of a carte blanche. No, you have to make a thought form and then they can help you.
Yeah, the louder, the clearer, the more concise that you are about what you're looking for,
Yeah.
the more of a response that you're going to get. And actually,
Yeah.
a podcast episode I just released is called Yell at Your Spirit Guides. And I love it because anytime I've ever gotten any progression in my physical life is when I like get upset with them. And I'm like, guys, like, just give me the answer. And then the answer shows up instead of like, I would really like to know this thing. And if it's just kind of a casual passing thing, forget about it, right? But when you are direct and you're clear, so yell at your spirit guys, just yell at me. I mean, obviously not in an aggressive way, but
right. Yeah.
So incredible.
But saying it out loud. Yeah. Saying it out loud is important.
It helps. Yeah.
For real.
Writing it down. So any like last messages for humanity, and then we can kind of talk about what your offerings are and like, what you're kind of up to right now at this time.
Yeah, thanks. I think that the biggest thing I would say to take away from it is for people to continue to invest in their lives, to be aware, and to understand that a lot of the people that are tuned in to what you're doing are people who are experiencing a lot of going through their growth now. So when this happens, you're going to have the experience of having gone through all of this. Like all the people that are watching are going to have had the experience of Lionsgate and knowing and feeling and being attuned with their awareness to the energies that they're experiencing and connecting and doing all those things. And then we're going to get to a place where people may want to stay or maybe ready to stay, but they are just starting to go through these energies, right? And then they're going to be starting to go through the process and they may be experiencing the depression and all the things. So how can we be of service? By being super present to what we're going through right now, so that when we're on the other side, we can help and instruct those people who are still going through it, to help lift everybody up, because it is the thing we're moving into this sensation of brotherhood, where everything, like all the consistent messages over and over and over again, is the frequency we're moving into is moving away from what is good for me and what do I need, and we're moving into what is good for everyone. So it's going to be all about how do we help each other, how do we serve each other, not in a way that you destroy the self, not that you give away your essence, but in a way that you grow through healing others, that you help. And then it is the understanding that we are all one. And that's what we're moving into. So I think that's what I would lead people with the most, to continue to invest in your life, focus on your growth, be aware of your growth, and be prepared to serve.
Yep. Love it. And I think we're all here because we're feeling that,
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah. So what are you up to? What can you offer this community?
Yeah, thank you. The thing I'd love to invite everybody to is first of all, I do have a YouTube channel, which is Ann Tucker channel, and you can find us ANNE Tucker, Tucker. And I also offer, if you want to have a firsthand experience of the angels, I offer a monthly peace bathing, they call it. And this is guided by the angels. They raise everybody up. It's a healing, but it's a very, very gentle, very loving healing, where they raise everybody up into the vibration of peace and hold them there. And the idea is that it sort of unfolds all of the junk that you have in your field, clearing away all the stress and the anxiety and anything that you're carrying, letting that drift in and holding you in this really, really beautiful, very pure frequency, and doing that on a regular basis. If you think of yourself going through life, it's like we're all like rubber bands. And when you're super, super stretched, it's really hard to show up as your best self. And how do you grow as quickly as we need to grow when you're stretched like that? So doing this on a regular basis kind of resets your baseline, resets your base point, so that you're always in this much more relaxed state. So anyway, so that's once a month, and it's called Peace Bathing, and it's on my website, which is anntucker.com. So thanks so much for asking.
I love that. Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Anne, for coming on, and we'll be sure to link all of your links in the description below. And thank you everyone for participating and being here and having an open mind and being ready to listen and absorb and apply and, help out the collective as well. So we definitely need as many light workers, warriors, angelic channelers, beautiful beings as possible, because it is a tumultuous time. So really appreciate you being here, Anne. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been so much fun. I just love getting to connect together and share information. It's been just awesome. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Bye, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.